This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
We're now joined by Katie Glueck. She's a national reporter for Politico and Politico.com. Katie, always good to visit with you. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Let's begin with what I would argue is the biggest story of the presidential campaign this past week. Stephen Bannon of Breitbart News joining the Trump campaign, as well as Kellyanne Conway. And then we've got the Paul Manafort ouster resignation late on Friday. I'm calling this a campaign shakeup, even though the Trump campaign doesn't want to call it this. But how is this going to turn around Trump's flailing campaign in terms of what we've seen the last few weeks?
Well, great to be with you, Roby. Remains to be seen if and how that may happen. You know, certainly last night Donald Trump gave a speech that generally praised. He appeared to stay on message. He expressed remorse and regret for offending folks, which is something that we haven't seen much from him previously. But at the same time, that was a speech that was delivered via teleprompter. And, certainly it's possible he's going to continue to deliver those, fairly tightly scripted addresses. But if not, then again, sort of remains to be seen whether he's going to now continue to sort of focus in on prosecuting the case against Hillary Clinton, or if he's going to revert to what we have seen from him over the last year, which is, certainly drawing contrast with the Democrats for sure, but also, he does have a tendency to sometimes draw contrasts, and sometimes particularly heated contrasts with his fellow Republicans and with others, with whom he gets into disagreement. So it remains to be seen whether this new campaign leadership is able to sort of bring him around to staying a little bit more on message full time.
So this appealing to this more disciplined message that you're referring to and that you're talking about here, he risks alienating the people that have been with him from day one who like him because he doesn't read off a teleprompter. He's not scripted. He does kind of shoot from the hip. Is he got a risk of losing some of those voters at this time? Could they be, maybe they're not going to support Hillary, but are they going to be turned off by this more disciplined Donald Trump?
Well, I think it was Donald Trump who once joked that he could shoot someone in New York and his supporters would still be there with him, and so certainly he does have a very committed base of loyal supporters who I think are going to forgive him even if he does, read off teleprompters from time to time. But certainly if you take a look at how he's doing in a number of battleground states, what becomes clear, I just got back from North Carolina, and what's true there and what's true in some other states is that the reason he is trailing Hillary Clinton in a number of these, really crucial states is because, in part, he has yet to consolidate the traditional Republican base. There are some Republicans who, voted for Mitt Romney, they voted for McCain, they voted for George W. Bush, but they still have concerns about Donald Trump. And so, to the extent that he is able to put forward a new, sort of more focused, disciplined message, we'll have to see whether he is able to bring those folks over to the fold or not before Election Day.
And maybe it gives some of those establishment Republicans who are uncomfortable with his candidacy a reason to hold their nose and go ahead and vote for him, as you kind of indicated there. Let's pivot to Hillary Clinton and talk about the week that she's had. For starters, she's endured from a number of Trump's campaign representatives this questioning of her health. And this has obviously stirred a lot of buzz in the media. Hillary Clinton's doctor has come out and very forcefully defended her health as being in very good shape to run for president. We've also seen a very scorched earth kind of response from the Clinton campaign. Why have they pushed back so forcefully on this narrative of her having health issues, do you think?
Well, one thing to remember is that both she and Donald Trump are actually pretty close to being the same age. So there is, the sense among some of her supporters that it's not fair to sort of be making these suggestions that they feel are completely unfounded. They do reference the sign-offs from her doctor, sort of assuring that she is in tip-top shape. That they feel that's sort of unwarranted, especially given the fact that they are the same age. And so, there's that. And more broadly, it's sort of felt as, another effort to question her judgment and her temperament. And there's the feeling that, again, it's sort of a baseless means of questioning because, they do feel that her health records are in order. And so they're trying to sort of turn the page on that.
Yeah, I would argue too, maybe pushing back so forcefully also is an indication they do not want to let that narrative get out of hand and maybe go down the path for a little bit. Another development for Hillary Clinton this past week is that her email server FBI file, I think basically some notes from her FBI questioning, handed over to some members of Congress. I have to think we will start seeing some of those documents at some point in time in the pretty near future. But do you think there's going to be a smoking gun there? Is there going to be something that's kind of a gotcha in those notes, or do you think it will be kind of more what we have already read?
Well, certainly there's a push to make more of that public, sort of what is in those documents, and Republicans in particular are pushing that, but Tim Kaine has suggested, he thinks he would agree that more information should be made available to the public, so we'll see, although it does seem like perhaps if there were a real kind of smoking gun in there, that's something that may have leaked out already.
All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We're with Katie Glueck of Politico.com, and we're going to be back with Katie with more questions on the presidential race right after this. And we are back now with Katie Glueck. She's a national reporter for Politico.com. Katie, let's pick up where we left off here and let's talk about some other developments in the presidential race this week. Your organization, other news organizations have been reporting about how the path to 270 electoral votes is narrowing for Donald Trump because of the terrible summer that he's really had, and it is widening for Hillary Clinton. Is there, what do GOP insiders say? Do they still think that there is time to turn this around? And is there an air of overconfidence on the Clinton campaign's part, do you think?
Well, listen, we're 80 some odd days out from Election Day, 81 or something like that as we speak. That is a long time in politics. And, all it takes to set Hillary Clinton back is, one WikiLeaks or, one, downturn in the economy or another sort of major disaster that has the potential to completely upend the presidential race. A lot of folks with whom I've spoken, and it totally depends on the state. Some states look far more competitive than others do. But, in some of the states where she does appear to have a pretty either significant lead or in some places maybe it's a little bit of a narrower lead, but it looks like the trend is going her direction. Even Republicans are willing to say some privately, some publicly that at this point it looks like she would have to really make a big mistake, or there would have to be a big external event to shift the dynamics in some of those particular battleground states. But in other states, for example, Iowa looks close, and a number of other states that do still appear to be competitive. So, we got a long ways to go before Election Day, but certainly is the case that in some of these battleground states, Republicans are starting to wonder whether there is any way for Trump to right the ship, barring a really big external event that neither campaign can control.
Let's talk about the third-party candidates in this race. We had independent Evan McMullin kind of really introducing himself over the last week to 10 days, trying to make a statement. He is qualifying for the ballot in a couple states, missed a deadline for another one, remains to be seen there. You've also got Gary Johnson, you've got Jill Stein. Do you see any of the third-party candidates changing a state outcome to maybe put Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump in a better position to win a state that might not really go red or blue normally?
Well, I would keep an eye on what happens in the West. In Nevada, in Utah, in Arizona, I've spoken with a number of folks, especially folks from the Mormon community, and there is a pretty big representation of the Mormon community out West. But other conservatives too, maybe a little bit more liberty minded. Some elements of sort of libertarian thinking appeals to them a little bit more out there. I would really watch it and see what they do, because I've spoken with a number of conservatives. Again, from that part of the country that really are looking for an alternative. They're maybe more socially conservative. They feel that they cannot vote for Hillary Clinton, not because of where she is on abortion first and foremost, but they also feel that Donald Trump does not share their views, does not share their values, and so they are looking for other options. So Gary Johnson, he's former governor of New Mexico, has an office in Salt Lake City. He is someone who may find some pretty significant support out West, and Evan McMullin obviously has deep ties to Utah, and so I would really look at those states and see if either of those candidates end up shaving off enough support from Donald Trump that the state, especially in a place like Nevada or maybe even Arizona, ends up tilting more towards Clinton's direction. direction.
Yeah, we'll have to watch some of the state-by-state polling on that, too, and see if there's some things that crop up in those last 80 days. Now I have a pop quiz for you, Katie. Are you ready for a pop quiz?
I will do my best.
All right. What was the most disturbing political news of the week? I'm going to give you an A, B, and a C choice. A, was it naked Trump statues appearing in certain parks around the country? Was it Sarah Palin's use of the Russian flag emoji in signaling her support for Paul Manafort? Or was it the FEC crackdown on D's nuts, butt stuff, and limber butt McCubbins, the alternative candidates out there?
Oh man, can you go D, all of the above in terms of raising some eyebrows?
I would give you a D as an all of the above there. So I will put my vote in is for the naked Trump statues there. That was disturbing
if I had to pick
me.
One.
So yeah,
absolutely, that's fair. I'm going to go with that too.
All right, last question for you. Just do you care? I know it's been a crazy political year, but do you care to make any political predictions? Something that may happen in the next week, something that may happen between now and Election Day. Would you go out on a limb on anything?
Well, if I have learned anything this year, it is that it is a particularly dangerous year to make predictions of any sort. Everyone I probably made it a year ago, I think is wrong at this point. So it's been a highly unpredictable year. One thing I would say to watch, and would stress this is not a prediction, but just something that I think is going to be really interesting is, what this map ultimately ends up looking like. Where are these campaigns actually fighting in October? For example, Hillary Clinton has stopped spending a ton of money in places like Colorado, Pennsylvania for now. Is that do those states which are traditional battlegrounds, do they end up being battlegrounds as we get closer to October and November or not? And we've seen a lot of talk about whether a place like Georgia is in play, for example. Is that actually in play? And as we get closer to the election, and Donald Trump has in the past talked about expanding the map, and his new team seems more interested theoretically in sort of shifting back to some of the more traditional battleground states. That's what they say. So does Trump ultimately end up expanding the map a little bit more? And if not, are they able to catch up to Clinton in some of these critical battleground states? So really fascinated to see where these campaigns are actually playing in October. Yeah,
and I've told many people, Katie, I'm disappointed because this election season is going to be one that we get to throw out after the campaign is over, because I doubt we'll have another one that's this crazy. So the data that we're getting is not going to be as useful as a traditional election year. She's Katie Glueck. She's a national reporter for Politico.com. As always, Katie, we really appreciate your insight. Thanks for being with us.
Always great to be with you. Thanks so much for having me.